I'm a time traveler from the year 2345. I'm sorry for what's coming. Okay, let me start off with I know damn well that none of you are going to believe me. After all, this stage of time, the idea of time travel was barely moving from something which is shunned by the scientific community and the world in general, and it's fascinated of being taken seriously. And if you have so many people who LARP at time traveler who truly aren't even right here on Reddit, hell, the time travel subreddit is full of them. But regardless if you believe it or not, I assure you, I am a real one. I will say right off the bat that I won't give you my real name for the simple reason that, well, I'm actually alive right now in 2023. To be more specific, the past version of me is alive right now. I can't afford to let history change for reasons I'll go into in a minute. I also won't get into much information about the future in relation to things such as political or such, so please don't ask. But I suppose I should give you a rather few vague details which may help convince you, time goes on, that I'm telling the truth. It may convince the right people that my warning is real. For starters, less than 2 or 3 decades from now, not only are there cures for cancer and other major debatable diseases been found, but they are emitted from a simple vaccinated shot. In a way, the pandemic we went through helped accelerate their development. We also ended up making death itself more of a choice than inevitable. Life extension research being conducted right now led to both the ability of life for centuries, if not longer, but also retain our youthful bodies for as long as you wish, which means many of you reading this might be alive in my time. I was one of those who jumped on the wagon after they finished working on the bugs out on it. I mean, imagine having the body of yourself in your 20s, with all the knowledge and wisdom you accrued from living so long, not to mention being able to do all the things which a single natural lifetime wouldn't allow. It gets some pushbacks at first. For people who worry about living beyond a natural lifetime, gasoline is banned by the highway point at this century, but ethical fuel means people aren't forced into electric cars, which I was extremely happy about because it meant I could keep driving my Carlotta DeVal around. Although many people get hooked on flying cars craze, that happens towards the end of the 21st century. Not me, though. I prefer staying on the ground. Trust me, mid-air accidents are not pretty. However, space traveling took off after the immense missions put people back on the moon. A few years from now, you guys, and once the moon base and spaceport was conducted, well, it was off the race from there. Vacations to planet like Mars, along with plenty moons such as Europa and Titan, became regular occurrences even for those not so wealthy. And as for time traveling, well, just take a look. Well, longer than anticipated to work on, and that's the reason why I'm writing this now. You see, there are many discussions that happening as people begin to time travel more and more seriously. Not only to the future, which could already be done at the time dilation, but the past. It also became as much as a race for every country in its world as the space rate in the 16th had been. Everyone wanted to be written in history books for eternity as the ones who finally invented the ability to travel through time itself, but people weren't really rushed like they used to. When they only had a century or less to live, scientists could work as much longer without worrying about retiring or dying. During the first part of this time, I honestly wasn't part of the invasioners myself. I more or less turned my life around from the second I realized I could be able to live longer than I thought I would ever before. I made something of myself, and without getting into too many specific details, as again, I want my identity to remain protected, I will say I became the bestseller author and explorer who did everything to climbing Mount Everest on Earth and Olympus Mons on Mars, to using the vast wealth I made from writing and other business ledgers to create underwater cities familiar with the design, how Raptors from the Bioshock video game looked. I was living my best life from the latter half of the 21st century to the midway point of the 23rd. But there was something that kept pulling away at my mind all throughout it. You see, I'd done so much checking so much things off my bucket list that there was one thing I hadn't done yet. And if you guessed that it was that I wanted to time travel, then congratulations. You just won a trip for Europa. Ever since I had been a little child growing up in the very tail end of the 20th century and the early 21st, I'd wanted to visit the past. I wanted to do things such as attending the 9th Cultural Film Festivals in the 1956 to see Jerko Rado, The Silent War, win the Golden Palm Award, see exotic animals such as the Barrel lion and the Panarol tiger, and travel across the ocean on the old ocean liner such as the Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth, for starters. That was how they hooked me into funding such research. You see, the federal capitalist, whose real name I won't use for the sake of telling this we'll call Reynolds, approached me as one of his first big investments. He heard me mention my desire of time traveling during my book tours. Hell, I'd actually written an entire book series about it. That's why when he called me that day, I immediately shot straight into it in my chair, paying close attention. "Quote unquote, son," he said, over the video screen on my desk. "I had known for a long time now that you wanted to visit the past." I saw a smile break across his face. "Well, what if I told you that we are the ones closest to actually achieving it? And if you're willing to invest a little time and money into the project, that I was willing to become one of your first and actual travelers in the past." I leaned forward in my chair. "Well, I will say, you now have my attention, Mr. Reynolds." From that moment on, I was hooked. I was brought to his laboratory, where I was honestly shocked to find he wasn't lying. They were closer than any of the hundreds of other governments or private entities attempting to master it. Even to me, it was extremely complicated to understand, but I'll try to explain it. What he found is layman's term. Such scientists right now in this century believe that if you travel near a black hole, you would experience time delusional, which means 1 year near the edge of one would mean 8 years or so back on Earth. It was already proven in 2190, and the space exploration, which had left the beginning of the 21st century, came back looking exactly how it did almost a century prior. There's also a theory that black holes could work in reverse, operating as wormholes to both teleport and send people back in time. The issue is it was found you need a particular escalator about 1 billion kilometers long, along with a stable wormhole. Both were almost a complete impossibility until Reynolds' team came up with a discovery.